네, 어제 저희 방송에서 금과 은 가격이 크게 하락한 소식 전해드렸는데요. 이번 급락은 시장이 리스크를 줄이는 과정에서 달러 강세와 단기 투자 자금 이탈이 동시에 나타났다는 분석입니다. 즉, 주요 기관들은 이를 구조적인 추세 변화라기보다는 과열 이후에 리스크를 줄이려는 조정 과정으로 보고 있습니다. 도이체방크와 JP모간 역시 금 가격이 중기적으로는 온스당 6,000달러까지 회복될 수 있다는 전망을 유지하고 있습니다. 도이체방크의 금속 리서치 총괄의 분석 직접 들어보시죠.
Do you think this is that we're seeing a fundamental shift, a durable shift in price of gold and silver as well?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we were writing about today. We don't think it's a durable fundamental shift, and we think it's purely tactical. Now, has been very deep. We can't say that we could have predicted exactly where it would bottom, but certainly it's the largest single-dig decline on Friday since 1980 and 1983. We had two instances then of a greater than 8% decline, and we've had the third instance on Friday. That was only the third in the last 50 years, basically, since 1975. So I think investors would be right to sort of question their basic assumptions here, question what they're getting into. Certainly, volatility has remained high, exceptionally high for a couple days now, and that does warrant some caution. But when we think about what the real fundamentals of gold are in particular, and this carries over to a certain amount to the rest of the precious, but we don't think those fundamental interests from investor have changed. And when you talk about what the fundamentals are, they are investment intentions purely. So, yeah.
And I understand that at Deutsche, you're sticking with a target of 6,000. We heard earlier from Grace Peters at JP Morgan that they're looking at a similar elevated target, 6,500, I think. They are targeting gold. What's your reasoning for that?
So we've seen really since 2022, there was a big shift. Now, I mean, and we were talking about central banks, of course. So official demand historically for gold has been one of the big sort of linchpins of sentiment, I think. And prior to the 2000s, in the 2000s, sorry, we had central banks net sellers, right? And back then we needed to have the Washington central bank agreements to reassure the market that central banks would limit their sales to a certain volume per annum. And that was attendant with a structural or secular decline in gold prices. Now, central banks turned net buyers in 2010, and I think that was a meaningful shift for investor sentiment overall. And then in 2022, we had central banks or official demand double that pace of buying.
Michael.
And it's been, yes.
But your numbers speak volumes. 2010, 2022, double. But it took even until the start of last year before we saw this stratospheric rally. And I want to know what changed. And I don't think it's just about the central banks or the longer-term retail buyer. It's the fact that it became exciting again. All those Bitcoin lot decided, no, we've had enough of that. That's boring. We're going to play Kalshi, we're going to play Polymarket, we're going to play silver, and we're going to play gold. The problem for you, who's talking about fundamentals, is that there's a lot of people who've got involved in this now who've got no intention of owning this medium to longer term. They're just there for the trade.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, one thing is certainly that we had in last year, we had the first year of ETF net buying for 5 years. And then definitely as of November, December, it's certainly a new dynamic took hold. It's not immediately evident in the data what corners that's coming from, but we do see some evidence pointed to China, particularly in the GFEX PGM futures market, which opened in late November, and then in some silver ETFs in China, which showed unusually high premiums to NAV. So I think you're absolutely right that there's a strong speculative overlay that is distorting prices as we've seen in the last couple of days.